Do you think you have seen everything when it comes to betrayal? For this holds this. My own husband cheated on me. With my mother. Yes, my people. You didn't read it wrong. My mom. The betrayal is already a disgusting thing. But when it involves your own family, it gets even worse. And do you know what hurts the most? I suspected, but I didn't want to believe it. We always think we are exaggerating, which are just paranoia. But I should have heard my instinct. What you will hear now is not any story. It's a scandal, a nightmare, absurd, and of course, an unforgettable revenge. Because I'm not a woman to leave cheap, and if they thought they were going to go unpunished, they were very wrong. At first, I was just a wife trying to save my marriage. I gave myself everything. But do you know what I learned? Some battles already start lost, and the most unbelievable of all this? As I tried to rekindle my marriage's passion, my husband was already in my mother's arms. In the same resort, on the same trip I planned. And if you think this story is already shocking, calm. That was just the beginning. Because besides the shock, came the revolt. And then my sweet and deserved revenge. So take the popcorn, because today I will tell you how my husband and my own mother betray me, and how I gave the change in a way they will never forget. I won't lie, my marriage was no longer the same. In the beginning, it was pure passion. My husband caught me willingly, made me feel unique, desired. But over time, everything was cooling. That's why I thought about this trip to the resort. A paradise place, moments alone, a fresh start, a second honeymoon to rekindle the fire. But believe me if you want, my mother decided to go along. Ah, daughter, I need to relax too. It's going to be fun, she said. I found it strange, but I let it pass. Stupid me, right? What I didn't realize right away was how Jeff changed his behavior as soon as my mother came into this story. He stayed different, more silent, more on the cell phone, farther from me, but I refused to think the worst. We arrived at the resort and everything seemed perfect, but my intuition shouted there was something wrong. And guess what? It was really. The first sign was at dinner. My mother was looking at Jeff in a different way, and when she made a comment about younger men being interesting, he laughed. But it was not any laugh. It was a low laugh, a laugh full of secrets. My stomach wrapped it, but I ignored it. Then, in the pool, I noticed looks. Those looks that burn the skin that speak 1,000 words. But again, I pretended to be my head. If I knew what was coming, I would have thrown that bastard in the pool and turned home at the same time. I wanted to believe it was my head, but the signs were there, staring at me. On the second day at the resort, Jeff began to act strange. He lived with his cell phone in his hand, laughing at something, and when I asked, he just said he was a friend at work. But which friend sends message all the time during a romantic trip? In addition, he began to move away. I woke up and he had already left. When I called him for a walk on the beach, he made up excuses. I would rather stay at the bar, on my cell phone, while I was tanning alone in the lounger. And my mother? She was always around, but never with me. What lit me the warning was when I took the two in a conversation that clearly stopped as soon as I entered the room. They exchanged glances and changed the subject on time. That gave me a shiver on my spine. In the pool, a waiter arrived with a drink and said it was a gift. I asked who, and he pointed to my mother, who was on the other side, a bikini, laughing, with a cup in his hand. Jeff was on her side. I will never forget the look that the two exchanged at that moment. The way she touched his arm, the way he looked away from me. My heart fired. There, I knew. If I had any questions before, at that moment I was sure. My own husband was cheating on me, and worse, with the person who should protect me above all. And I swear, I was going to find out everything. It cost what it cost. I was almost sure, but I still needed to see with my own eyes. That night, Jeff said he was tired and was going to sleep early. I was surprised, because minutes before he was excited, wanting to enjoy the resort. But, okay, I let him go. Half an hour later, I went to the bedroom and the bed was empty. His cell phone was not carrying. The clothes were still intact. My heart fired. I left the hall, trying to keep calm until I passed in front of my mother's room. That's when I heard, first, a stuffy laugh, then a moan. I froze. My eyes filled with tears. My breath was heavy, but I needed to be sure. I approached the door and leaned my ear. More moans. And this time, a whisper. "Jeff, that's very good." Followed by a laugh. My blood boiled. I felt my face burn, my hands shake, my mouth dried up. My body told me to run away, but my mind shouted, "Open this door now." I held the doorknob, closed my eyes, and pushed it hard. And there he was, leaving the towel bathroom, all wet, with a smile on his face. My mother, sitting on Robe's set as bed, looking at me like nothing happened. The smell in the room said everything. The only thing I could say was, "You are disgusting." My mother laughed in my face. And that's when I decided, if they thought I was going to get humiliated from this story, they were very mistaken. I expected regret. He expected at least a look of guilt, an attempt to explain. But no. What I received was a mockery smile. My mother got up slowly from the bed, straightened the robe, and crossed her arms. "You look surprised, daughter," she said, with that superior tone that always annoyed me. My breathing was heavy. My heart punched my chest. I looked at Jeff, waiting for a reaction. Anything. And what did he do? He lowered his head and gave a stupid smile. "Is that it? Is it all you have to tell me?" I shouted, feeling the tears go up. My mother laughed in my face. "Ah, Camille, you've always been so naive. Jeff has always liked mature women." Those words fell on me like a bomb. My blood boiled. Mature? That was the beautiful name for Home's destroyer now? Jeff finally opened his mouth. "Camille, I didn't want it to be like that, but... My body acted before my mind thought. I grabbed the glass of water that was on the nightstand and threw it on his face. "You didn't want it to be like this? So how did you want?" He walked away, but I didn't leave cheap. I grabbed the loose towel he wore and drew tightly. "Now everyone will see the kid you are." Jeff tried to cover the intimate parts, red of shame. My mother shouted and came to me, but I had already done the damage. Did they want to humiliate me? Now it was their turn. I left that room feeling everything at the same time. Anger, disgust, humiliation. But one thing shouted louder inside me. I wasn't going to get out of this story like the poor thing. As he walked through the resort, his heart rapid and his head boiling, an idea began to take shape. My mother was always in Santina, but everyone knew she loved a younger man. So much so that just before this trip, she appeared with a new boyfriend. A beautiful guy, much younger, all full of Mara, the typical cheap conqueror, those who like to collect women like trophies. And that's when it gave me a snap. If my mother thought she could take my man and go unpunished, nothing fairer than proving her own poison. I took the phone and started to stalk her boyfriend's profile. It didn't take long to find what I wanted. He lived posting phrases about bold women and adventures without commitment. Translating? A plate full for my plan. I sent an unpretentious message, a compliment here, a flirting there. In less than 5 minutes, he was already falling in my little chat and calling me to talk better, personally. But only seduce it was not enough. I needed to do this as scandalously as possible, so I made a date. An elegant dinner, a provocative dress, and a well-designed plan. If my mother wanted to play with me, then I knew how to play. Now it was my turn to laugh. The next night, I chose my best dress. Fair, low, cut, the way that makes any man turn his neck. I made myself accurately. I spent a red lipstick and finished with a perfume that left traces where I passed. When I arrived at the restaurant, my mother's boyfriend was already there. He looked at me from head to head and bit his lip. I smiled aside, because I knew I had already won. I sat at the table and started the game. A subtle touch on his arm, a longer look, a compliment here, a laugh there. He was falling, and I didn't even have to work hard. After some glasses of wine, he could not resist. "You are much more interesting than your mother commented," he said, sliding his hand through my thigh. Perfect. With each touch, with each provocation, I just made sure everything was being recorded by my cell phone. I leaned over to whisper in his ear, and at that moment I recorded exactly what I wanted. I could feel his desire growing up, his breath, the way he leaned more and more to me. But I wasn't there to surrender. I was there to win. Dinner ended fast. He wanted to go to a more reserved place, but I had already achieved what I wanted. I took my cell phone, smiled, and said, "It was a pleasure, but the fun hasn't even started." The bomb was about to explode, and I was going to watch everything from a box. The day of the great revelation has come, and I was going to make everything happen as the most theatrical way possible. My mother organized a special dinner at the resort's main hall. Several relatives, friends, a sophisticated environment. She was radiant, smiling, as if nothing had happened. But she barely knew that that night the game was going to turn. I arrived stunning. I put on the same dress from the night before, the one who made her boyfriend devour me with his eyes. I sat next to them and watched the theater, my mother clinging to the new trophy, all proud, while Jeff pretended that I didn't exist. I waited for the right moment. In the middle of dinner, I asked for everyone's attention and announced that I had a special video to show. I grabbed my cell phone, connected to the big screen of the salon, and played. There, in front of everyone, the video started to run. Her boyfriend's images flirting with me, holding my thigh, muttering in my ear. The silence was cut by a single sound, my mother's keeper falling on the plate. Her face turned red, then pale. She stood up in a jump. "Blood!" she shouted. Her boyfriend tried to explain herself. Jeff widened her eyes, but it was too late. Everyone was looking. Whites emerged. My mother was shaking with hate. But me? I got up slowly, took a sip of wine, and smiled. "It hurts, right? But don't worry, Mom. You taught me how to play that way." And that night I left dinner with headdress. The humiliation she planned for me? I returned with interest. After that night, the silence in the resort was deafening. My mother, humiliated in front of everyone, ran out of the hall, red of hatred. Her boyfriend, trying to explain herself, was expelled from the table with a slap on her face. Jeff had the courage to try to look for me the next day. "Camille, can we talk?" I laughed. Laughs at his face. "Talk? Now do you want to talk? After all?" He tried to get closer, but this time I didn't go back. "Do you know what is funny, Jeff? You cheated on me with my mother. And yet, who came out as a sucker in this story was you." He lowered his head and left without saying anything else. Pathetic. My mom? She disappeared for a while. He returned home weeks later, but the damage was already done. Our relationship was never the same. Deep down, part of me wanted her to regret, to apologize, but she never asked. He preferred to keep his pride. He preferred to blame me, as if I were wrong for exposing the truth. And me? I moved on. Stronger, smarter, more owner of me than ever. I learned that the worst betrayal does not come from a stranger. It comes from who should protect you. But I also learned that no one steps on me without paying the price. Why can I forgive, but forget? Never. The pain became learning. And today, when I look back, I just feel one thing: relief for getting rid of such rotten people. If there is one thing that this story has taught me, it is that no one is immune to betrayal. But the worst part is not to be betrayed. It is being betrayed by those who should protect you. My mother and Jeff. They were just two dirty chapters in my life. In the beginning, it hurt. I felt a trash, thrown side by two people I loved. But do you know what I realized? Who lost were them. My mother lost a daughter. Jeff lost a woman who really loved him. And me? I earned my freedom. I learned that when someone cheats on you, the problem is never you. The problem is in them, the dirt that carry within themselves. Looking back, I could have reacted differently. It could have cried. I could have made me a victim. But no, I preferred to show that I am not a woman to lower my head. Life has taught me that every betrayal can be a new chance to start over. And that's exactly what I did. Today, I am stronger, safer, and I know exactly my value. I don't regret anything. And if necessary, I would do it all over again. And now, I want to know about you. Have you been through something like that? Have you ever felt the pain of being betrayed by someone who should protect you? Tell me in the comments. And of course, if you liked my story, leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so as not to miss any video. Because here, those who cheat pay the price.